Hi everyone, I'm Erica from Erica Scroggins Jewelry. If you're new here, welcome. I make wire wrapping and weaving tutorials. If you're interested in this sort of thing, please consider subscribing. And if you are a longtime member, thank you for your support. I'm going to be using a mint kyanite or Australian sapphire. Today I'm going to show you how to make a wire wrapped bat festoon pendant. You're going to need round nose pliers, half round ring bending pliers, flush cutters, tweezer nose pliers, nylon jaw pliers, a hammer of some sort. I'm going to use the plastic side of mine. You'll need calipers and scribing calipers or a Sharpie, a ruler, a bench block, two 24 gauge pieces of square wire, 6-inch 18 gauge round wire, one 20 gauge round wire. I'm going to mark the width and the height of my prongs. I'm going to follow along with my prong setting tutorial all the way up until it's time to put the two sets of prongs together. And then I'm just going to take the half round pliers and then I'll put a bend right in the top closest to one prong or the other. So I'm going to designate two top prongs and two bottom prongs, and I'm going to put the bend closest to the top prong of both sets of prongs. I'm going to adjust the tail end wires with my tweezer nose pliers and test fit my stone. I'm just going to wiggle this around until these two bottom prongs are setting right up against the stone, and to do that I'm going to have to point them in toward one another a little bit. Not very much, but just enough to where it follows the shape of the shield cut stone. Bend each tail end wire up against the bar. The bar is the piece of wire that is in between both prongs. And I'm just going to bend that up against the bar on the right side for me. I'm only going to do this one side first, and then I'll do the other side. Bend these tail end wires around each prong. I'm going to tighten these wires until I get a pyramid shape pretty much. And then I'll bend them out at an angle. Now my setting's ready. I'm going to prepare the frame wires by using my half round ring bending pliers to put a curve in the very center of this wire. I'm using my Zerons to put a bend in either side. I'm going to hold inside of the mark because the bulk of the wire can cause it not to bend in the right place. I'm bending up the tail end wires at an angle to where it looks like the bat has its wings open. I adjust the angle on the frame wire as well. I'm using the half round ring bending pliers to bend the shape of the bat's wings. I'm using the hammer to work harden the frame wires, and then I'm going to attach them behind the tail end wires, the top two. I'm using my tweezer nose pliers to adjust these wires to run along the side of the frame wire. You can use your favorite 2-wire wrap on the frame. I'm using 4 around the second wire and 1 around both wires. And I'm just going to do about 2 rotations of that. Back to the ring bending pliers. I'm going to do the same thing to the 20 gauge round wire. Mark the 20 gauge wire right where the prongs are on either side using a Sharpie, and bend right there just inside of that mark. 3, 2, 1, 2, 3. So 3 around the first wire, 2 around the first 2 wire, 1 around all 3, 2 around the first 2 wires, and then 3 around the first wire. I'll put about 2 rotations in. I added another 4 rotations into that weave. I want to bend the third frame wire down, and then I'll straighten it out. I bent in my wing just a little bit too far, but that's okay. I can fix it just by giving it a gentle squeeze, so that's a good tip. I'm going 4 millimeters out from each bottom prong, and then I will bend this wire in. So it's going in behind the setting. I'll hold that bend and then put a gentle curve in the wire. These should be about 12 millimeters. Then you'll add 2 millimeters onto each bend as you go. I'll put these wires, which I'm going to call the finger wires, I'll put these in behind the tail end wires. At the end of my curve, I'll put another bend in the wire. I need to bend toward the back of the stone. I'll hold and then finish that bend off. I'm going to do this just one more time, only the last one I am just going to barely put just a little bit of a curve in it so that it curves into that wing tip. I'll finish the other wing. And now I'll begin adjusting the frame wires. I need to mark the finger wires right where the tip of that bend is, because the finger wires are going to fall in behind each one of these bends. I need to bend just a little bit outside the mark that I made, just to ensure that I'm not making them too short, because sometimes the thicker wires, if you bend right on the mark or a little bit too far in, sometimes you can bend it too short. I'm putting a 2-wire weave in to connect the finger wire to the frame wires, and I'll go once around the finger wire and then once around that second frame wire here, and I'll do that 3 times. I need to bend the finger wire back and then down toward that second point there. I need to hold it here because it will bend the whole thing that way if I don't. I'm bringing the tail end wire forward because the finger wire needs to be moved backwards. I'm putting the 2-wire weave in one more time after I made that bend. I'm going to put a curve in it. I need to put a curve in the finger wire here. Just this one though, because the bat is flying. So this gives the impression that his wings are up in the air. I'll bend the finger wire back up the same way that I done the first one. So I'm just going to go ahead and bend this one back. I'll hold the tips and then curve it in the same direction as the wire that it's overlapping. So I'm just going to do tiny bends and move my pliers up the wire as I bend. At this point it is work hardened a little, so I'm just going to do tiny bends. I'll use the same 2-wire weave, 3 more rotations, I'm just going to bend the tail end of this one in behind my weave. I'll trim it to about 4 millimeters in length and curl it under and in behind the weave. If you want to make your loop, If you want to make your loop smaller, you can cut a millimeter, tiny bit of wire off and then use your zerons to tighten the loop. I'm bending the frame wire into a loop. These are the festoon loops. The second frame wire, I'm going to bend it back and out of the way, and then the tail end wire here, I want it to line up with the frame wire. The wire that I bent out of the way, I'm going to bend it back like the finger wires. And then loop it around and then back down. I want to put a curve in my frame wire, so I'm going to put a curve at the very top one, the 18 gauge one. And I'm curving it down and not up because I had to turn it upside down to curve it in that direction. And finish curving the rest of the frame wires. I'm going to use a 3-wire weave I'll do one around each wire, one around the top 2 wires, one around the bottom 2 wires, and then one around each wire individually. And I'll repeat that pattern 2 times. I want to try and anchor off on the very bottom wire. And I'll do that by putting 3 rotations around the very bottom wire. I'm going to trim any excess wire and then smooth out the tail ends. I'm going to cut this very bottom wire off. And then I'll make it into a small loop. I'll measure to make sure both sides are even. I'll test fit my stone. And it fits nicely. I'll make 2 double jump rings. And basically I just wrap a piece of wire around both ends, both tips of my round nose pliers, and then I'll trim the excess wire and then tighten them. Now I'm going to make enough of these to go on each festoon loop and then on the tips of my chain, and I'll make one large one. Only I want one of the sides to be a closed jump ring. Attach all of the pieces and the chain. If you'd like to reference the prong setting tutorial that goes with this one, there are some tips and tricks on setting stones there, but for this video I'm just going to barely bring the metal down toward the stone and just curve it in on each prong. I don't want my pliers to touch the stone, I want the metal to touch the stone, so I'll just barely bend it in and then finish that bend off by just giving it a gentle squeeze. Thank you so much, everyone, for making this pendant with me. These are spooky and you're spooky. Have a safe and happy Halloween, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that when new tutorials come out, you get notified.